that in a second, but first let's get to the 32 and 32.
Yeah, 32 and 32.
Yeah.
We are
You're gonna hate my
number
Watson
20 on this list, man. Speaking of this list, I have to be honest with you. Me, McNuggets, and Anthony put together probably the most stellar list in the history of the Ultimate
Facts.
Cleveland Sports Show doing
That
this.
is untrue.
Wow.
Number 20 on this list is Wyatt Teller. What impact can Wyatt Teller have on the Browns this year? We know he had a down season last season. To me, I think this is his last year with the Browns unless he restructures his contract. But what are you expecting from him this year?
I'll start, I guess.
Go ahead.
I do think Earl's right on point that unless they do a major restructuring of his contract, I think there's a more than 50% chance, probably more than a 70% chance, this is his final season in Cleveland. He has to play like 2021, 2020 Wyatt Teller for the Browns to reach their full potential this season. And I think the big reason of that is we all know Deshaun Watson's a great athlete. When pressure comes from the outside, you can step up in the pocket, find a lane, and create. The hardest thing to do as a quarterback is to evade internal pressure. That's why guys like Aaron Donald and Chris Jones are so valuable in the grand scheme of the NFL. And if Wyatt Teller can't keep those guys from getting into Deshaun Watson's face within half a second, then it's a lot harder for Deshaun Watson to then evade a guy when the middle's already collapsed and you can't get to the outside because edge rushers are taking that outside route and forcing Jed Wills and Jack Conklin to push him back inside. So interior pressure is the most unstoppable thing for an offense to deal with. And you have Bitonio on one side. They're not going after him, so they're going to be going after Wyatt Teller, which is why I think 20's about the right spot for him this year. He has to play well for them to reach their potential.
By the way, if Over the Cap has this right, and they're usually pretty reliable, the Browns can't. I mean, if they cut Wyatt Teller next year, there's almost $3 million in dead cap space. That's a lot.
Yeah, but they have a lot of guys that are
His contract's not looking great right now.
Teller.
What you mean, like in terms of like
Long-term sustainability or just in general?
I mean, so
He's probably gone next year.
they're going to take a $3 million dead cap hit
But look
to
at what-
save 6.4.
Is that all they save by cutting him?
That's it.
So to me, I think he's very important to what they want to do. I heard Ryan Clark on the other day, and he said something that I wholeheartedly agree with. He said, people believe that when you got a quarterback like Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb, that it's one or the other. And he said that's a basketball mentality. He's like, you saying that like you got two guards and one is both of them ball dominant. How many balls are going to go around so you can score? He said that's not the case with Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb. Then it becomes about situational football. In certain situations, it's up to the coach to figure out what plays he wants to run in those situations in order to maximize the success of the team. So if I'm looking at it like from this standpoint, I know everybody throws the football, but to me, I believe when I watch the Kansas City Chiefs, there's one way that you can beat the Chiefs, and it's a very slim margin if you just want to go throw for throw with them. You got to physically punish the Chiefs. You have to be able to when there's always a point in time where Chris Jones or somebody on their defense gets a sack or makes a play because you're throwing the football. But I believe that when they put their nickel package out there, the Cleveland Browns have to smile and say, we have the advantage. We have the best running back in the game. We got road graders up front at our guard position. We need to run straight at them to get these dudes out of here. And I think if you can out-physical the Chiefs, out-physical the Bills, out-physical the Dolphins, and punish them with what you got, and then you set up the pass, I think the Browns will be exponentially a better offensively. So I think Wyatt Teller is a big part of what they want to do. Hopefully for him, he stays healthy. That's his MO.
Yeah.
He gives a lot of punishment out, but he takes a lot of punishment.
Yeah.
Especially when you run the ball a lot. And the Browns have run the ball more than anybody in the last 3 years. That puts wear and tear on Conklin, wear and tear on Teller. You see what happened to Harris. Joe Bitonio's had a lot of wear and tear, and Will seems to be injured from Jump Street. So you got to always take into consideration when you do run the ball, your offensive line is in harm's way as well. So I like Teller. I think if he could get back to what he was, to your point, McNuggets, I think the Browns will be one of the most formidable offenses because they now have one of the best offensive lines and defensive lines in the game, and that translates because we want to beat you up.
If you look at the cap savings, Wyatt Teller, we were all thinking he was going to be cut, but I don't think so. not based on the cap. You'd save a lot on Joel Bitonio, but I don't know you want to go there. You could save a lot cutting Amari Cooper next year. But anyway, next year is next year. As for this year, Wyatt Teller's still very important. I agree with G. The guy played at an all-pro level a couple of years ago. His biggest problem has been he's been hurt, and that has kind of set him back. I still think he's a really good player. He's not as good as Bitonio.
No.
Bitonio's the most consistent guard, but one of the most, probably after Zach Martin, he's the most consistent guard in the NFL. But Wyatt Teller's a really good player, and if he can stay healthy this year, he can get back to that. But it's hard to have a lot of faith in him staying healthy. That's really the biggest flaw. I know we talked about Jedrick Wills in terms of the offensive line. Like if healthy, I'm only really worried about Jedrick Wills. But with Conklin and Teller, I'm worried about both of them getting hurt. I mean, they both have a history of injuries.
And you
Big
have
time.
DeJuan Jones now is slated to be the backup.
Yeah.
He's played in one preseason game, and it's a pre-preseason game.
Right.
We don't.
Well, they
know.
have James Hudson. I mean,
Hudson's more of a guard than a tackle, isn't he?
No,
he plays left tackle.
Yeah.
I
Left to
thought he
right.
kind of filled in everywhere, but whatever. So you have
Yeah.
James Hudson as well. But it's unproven commodities, and when your investment in Deshaun Watson is what it is,
Yeah.
in any franchise quarterback,
Right.
Deshaun Watson, name it, any of those guys, your season relies on their health. And the guys whose job it is to keep that quarterback standing are so vital. And that's why I think Wyatt Teller, if he gets back to the 2020, 2021 form where he had a 90-plus PFF grade in back-to-back seasons, just takes this offensive line to another new level.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It's I'm still surprised they signed Jack Conklin to that extension.
I'm very surprised.
That was a head-scratcher at the time.
Super surprised.
Conklin, and how old is Conklin at this point? He is...
I was super surprised at that.
he's like 28, I think. He was drafted 2015, I believe.
Conklin is 28. You're right. Actually, he's about to turn 29. He'll turn 29 in a week. He only missed 3 games last year. I don't know why I thought he missed more than that.
Because he was just always banged up.
Yeah.
It was always the
He was
question
in and out of games.
Yeah.
And he missed 10 games the year before. His first year in Cleveland, he only missed 2, but he's played 1 full season in the last 5 years.
Wasn't he all pro his first year in Cleveland?
He was.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
He was all
He's
pro.
been really good when he's been healthy.
It was all pro as a rookie in 2016 with Tennessee, and then all pro in his first year here. But at 20, listen, if he stays healthy, okay.
Boy, McNugget said something last night
Yeah.
on Behind the Glass before we move on to Johnny Manziel. I just want you to elaborate on a little bit. You said, there's a world next year to where the Browns can have 3 new starters on the offensive line.
Yeah, I do think that's possible.
It doesn't sound like it, though, because, they can't get out of Conklin's contract after next year.
Well, Conklin's not who I was referring to.
They can't get out of Teller. I mean, they
Well,
could, but
so now-
they could get out of Bitonio.
The Teller thing, in my mind, was a much bigger savings.
Yeah,
But if they don't like Jed Wills doesn't perform this year,
right.
he's probably replaced. Ethan Poach's on a 3-year extension. It's really a 1-year deal plus
Right.
2. They can get if they like Luke Whippler and Poach's isn't the 90 PFF
I mean, they
graded guy.
need to get younger on the O line.
But I'm just saying,
You
there's
can't
a world-
spend big money on 5 offensive linemen.
There's a world where next year you're looking at a new tackle, a new center, and a new guard.
It's possible.
There's a world where that exists. So
Yeah,
possible.
and I will say this too. I'm not so sold on Amari Cooper not being here. Like if Amari Cooper comes out and he's playing with the best quarterback he's ever played with, and they got a connection, and he goes over 1,400 yards.
he's probably back.
He's like, why would you cut him?
No, I would think they try to renegotiate.
Or restructure. That's
maybe
fine.
give him an extension, but at a little less money per year.
I mean, because listen, that production is hard to find.
Browns have a lot of cap questions. At the end, whether it's Cooper, Teller, Bitonio, Chubb, the list goes on and on. They got a lot of guys who are either on 1-year deals, like Zadarius Smith, who plays well. I'm assuming you'd want him back,
Yeah.
but you may not be able to sign
Hey,
him
listen,
monetarily.
let's worry about that.
But that's
We're
all next
talking
year.
way too much about
That's what I'm
next
saying. It's
year.
all
Yeah,
next
yeah.
year. We're not even
Yeah.
at this season.
Yeah,
yet.
we
We're
haven't
not even at
started yet.
2023.